taxing authority, such as meals tax, as proposed in the Hanover legislative agenda for the 2011 General Assembly.
Sorry, I wasn't sure this was on. I'm sorry, would you mind repeating it? We were trying to...
Sure, and this is for everybody, so this will go all the way down. Do you support giving Hanover County broader local taxing authority, such as the meals tax, as proposed in the Hanover legislative agenda for the 2011 General Assembly?
Well, I think it's something we have to take a hard look at. I know we're trying to keep our tax base, our taxes low here in Hanover County. We're all certainly in agreement on that. We are looking at some opportunities to bring more tourist dollars into the county, and one of the ways that some localities have done that is to have some additional fees on services that tourists primarily take advantage of. So if that is something that would help us keep our taxes low, at the same time we could be capturing some of those tourist dollars, I think it's something we need to take a hard look at. On the other hand, I don't think we want to penalize our citizens here in Hanover with a meals tax that is going to be problematic for our families. So I think we've got to look at what's the best way to do that. Is that the correct way? Is it something we want to look at perhaps more along the hotel taxes, which is going to be more out-of-town folks? But I think it's something we should have a hard look at and determine if it is the best thing for Hanover County or
Davis?
I believe taxing authority should be at the lowest level. I think that was the first question, and I do not support a meals tax.
Second question, do you believe in sustainable development? End of question, explain.
Thank you. You can run the verbiage any way you want it. There's no substitute for planning well. With property owners' rights, one of the things that I've seen is the word sustainable development. It says, well, if you're not for it, then you're obviously for unsustainable development. I don't agree with that premise. I don't agree with that premise. So don't give me a definition that then I would have to disagree with and then try to figure out where I come from. Property owners' rights are fundamental. Now, if you move to Hanover County, you're understanding what you're dealing with, that we're a rural natured county. We want to protect our historic resources. But you have to plan for that. You can't turn around and say, well, what I'm going to do is cluster 30 homes here in an area that really has no service. The roads can't support it, and we've got a lot of problems trying to get back and forth to these 30 homes, but it protected the other 70. And then you end up with a bad plan. So property owners' rights and planning like you would do in a business, there is no substitute, folks.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. I would agree that we have to have responsible development. I think what we're talking about is really the most involvement by the most citizens is how we get the best plan. So I agree that the involvement of all the citizens and what Hanover County will look like in the future is going to give us the best plan that we can possibly have. So I would invite all of you as we go into that planning process next year to be actively involved, to make sure that we have a great comprehensive plan with strong citizen involvement that keeps government close to the people. And that's why running as an independent, my concern is to hear what your concerns are and to best represent you in the Henry District and for all of Hanover. If our forefathers, who we've talked about tonight, had not done a good enough job, most of us wouldn't be here. We wouldn't love Hanover County for all of the wonderful things that we have if it hadn't been properly planned and had the involvement of citizens. So I would invite all of you to stay involved. That's the best way that we can have the best plan and the best outcome with responsible development.
Thank you. Bob? Yep. I think we're going to move to some questions from the audience. Good. Why don't I ask one 30-second question? Max 30 seconds for this one. Sorry about that. Let's start down with Ms. Jackson again, and we'll go down this way, and then I'll come back with some questions from the audience. If inflation is 2% and population growth is 2%, what amount would you let spending go up by?
I wouldn't let spending go up at all. I think the best way that we can do the best job, recognizing that we have inflation, that we are going to have population growth, I think there are a lot of resources that we can take advantage of without allowing our budget or spending to go up. I think there are ways that we can cut our spending, and there are ways that we can all be involved in the process and utilize the resources that we have here in Hanover County without having to pay for them. I'll give you a perfect example. When Mr. Vaya, my husband, sat on the Parks and Rec Commission. Oh, that was 30. Sorry, I thought I had a minute. Anyway, they used a lot of volunteer help in the county, used expertise of citizens in the county, and it didn't cost a penny to do a great comprehensive plan for our parks.
Mr. Davis.
I think the premise of the question is just because certain things rise, then obviously spending must rise, so would you agree with that? Anytime that you look at something, you have to be responsible when it comes to budgeting, and I've done that in the public sector, I've done it in the private sector. When you look at saving on expenditures, then you don't have to automatically look and raise expenditures or think that that's going to be the answer. You can cut spending in many areas, and these are the times that we can do it right now because it's easier to do because the public's doing it and the government can do it as well.
One full minute on this one. When appointing a person to the school board, what are the 3 most important questions you would ask, Davis?
The first thing I would ask a school board appointee or somebody looking to be appointed during the interview process is, who do you believe you're accountable to? Who do you believe you're accountable to? And it should be the students, the teachers, the principals, and the parents. Second thing I would add, and able, because it's going to come, to have the candid conversations for the things that go on within the brick and mortar schools. Are you willing to have those candid conversations when they tell you the issues that they had there and take them back up to the senior leadership? Are you willing to have those candid conversations? And the third thing is I want to have a strong sense that you have not only been involved in the community, but for a long time, and I want to see what your record has been in the community, your record of service and service in action. Those would be the top 3 things that I would like.
All right, let's go. This will be round 2, a little bit different format. The first couple of questions I have, they've all been given to me, all from the audience in a particular order, and that matters somewhat. The first couple are for all the candidates, but then beyond that, you have asked certain questions to individual candidates or to candidates from a particular political district, and so I will only ask that question to the folks that you put on your cards, and so we'll go through it that way. And Bob has tried to be equitable so that we have about an equal amount of questions per candidate. So I think the process is fair. All right, with that, let's start round 2, and I'll start off with a question to all candidates. Where did we leave off last time? Okay, Ms. Jackson, I guess we'll go back down this one, come back again. Have any of you ever switched and or denounced a political party? If so, why? Have any of you ever switched from a political party or denounced a political party? If so, why?
No, I haven't. I've always been an independent, and I continue to be an independent because I don't want to be tied to any political party or any special interest. I am only beholden to the citizens of Henry District and Hanover County who will elect me to represent them. So I have not been a member of any party, voted for candidates, and I would hope that you would do the same, that you would vote for the best candidate to represent you, to be your voice on the Board of Supervisors, and not listening to the special interests, but listening to the citizens who really matter.
I've never switched a party, I've never denounced
Do
a
you
party.
believe individual rights come from God or from government?
Certainly our rights come from God, and here's the really important aspect of that. If they don't come from God and they come from the government, then your rights can be voted away, or when a party changes, or when a majority changes, then you no longer have rights. But if your rights are given to you by the Creator, that who created you, then those rights cannot be taken away, and then you have a basis to know when your rights are being infringed upon.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Thank you, Mr.
I
Weil.
think we're all in agreement that our rights do come from God. And I believe that we also, with those rights, have a responsibility to be involved in our government, to make sure that our rights are not taken away, that we do respect each other's rights, and that we collectively work together to make sure that we are respecting each other's rights and that we are working together to find solutions that we can all live with. So I think with that right comes responsibility that God has
Thank
given
you.
us.
This question is for the candidates from the Henry District. Describe your view of an ideal growth plan for the Henry District and Mechanicsville. I guess we'll start with Ms. Jackson, and well, Mr. Davis, you already have a mic, sorry about that. Mr. Davis?
Repeat the question for me real quick, because I heard something about
You
Mechanicsville.
bet. Describe your view of an ideal growth plan for the Henry District and Mechanicsville.
Well, I think, first of all, to describe an ideal plan here without taking into account that you have a 4-year term might be inappropriate. What I do think is that you have to have a plan that falls within the guidelines of maintaining the culture of Hanover. You also need to respect and hold very dear private property owners' rights. So I think those two are very, very important. You understand when you move to certain areas, we have kind of a split district, whether it's rural, and then we have some other areas that are certainly suburban. So you have to look at each case individually. What I am not a fan of is legislation being passed from on high for somebody who's never even come down to a district or who said, this is what I think will work based on the numbers without even coming down into the Henry District or even our county for some point. So the point is that we have to have two fundamental things. One, preservation and protection of property owners' rights. And number two is to make sure that as you have a growth plan, that it needs to fit within the nature and the value system that you have already in place in your county and the uniqueness that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. I think the ideal plan is one that has the most citizen input, that will take into consideration the balance of all of the resources that we have in the Henry District and preserving our rural resources. We have a lot of farmers who have been farming and their families have been farming in the Henry District for decades, and we need to respect their rural resources and what we need to do to protect those, as well as accommodating growth as it comes into the district in a way that is going to be balanced and not cost the existing citizens. So one of the ways we need to look at that is to make sure that everybody has a role, everybody has a voice in that plan. We are required by the Constitution of Virginia to have a plan by the state legislature, but it is our plan, it's the plan that we determine is best for Hanover County, respecting the rights of the folks in that district. So I would invite again all of you to be part of that process so we can have the best possible plan.
This question is directed to all candidates, and you'll all love this one. We'll start with Mr. Kite. Would you be in favor of term limits for the Board of Supervisor position?
You know, I've gone back and forth on this issue since I was a young man. From 1980 to 88, I didn't believe in term limits for the president. Obviously, some things have changed. But here's the thing. I do understand from a business standpoint that when somebody's doing well, you do want to keep them in there, especially when you have something, when government is this close to the people. Most of the frustration comes when you have somebody who's not in there, that's a friend of lobbyists, and all kinds of crazy things that go on, and they're entrenched. And none of us like that, so we say, well, that might be a good idea. But the fact of the matter is, the responsibility is ours, the citizens, to speak our voice on election day and create those term limits. And on November 8th, you'll have that choice in a very critical election here in Hanover.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson.
I think, given the current situation that we have, that term limits make good sense, because I think it's very difficult to unseat an incumbent. They always have an advantage. They have name recognition. They oftentimes have more financial support. Running as an independent, you don't have the party system to pay for slick brochures or, lots of signs. You have to really kind of raise that from the grassroots. And I think that's why, running as an independent and having that grassroots support is so important. I'm not looking to be a career politician. I'm looking just to represent the citizens of Hanover County. And so, I'd be perfectly happy with term limits and in order to do the job in a short amount of time and not linger too long and let other people step up to the plate.
Thank you very much. This question is addressed to all candidates. We'll start with you, Ms. Jackson. Do you like the Tea Party principles? Limited government, less taxes, fiscal responsibility, constitutional adherence, others?
I would agree with, I think most of what the Tea Party principles are. I think we all want to keep limited government. We all want to keep our taxes low. I don't think there's anybody in this room who doesn't agree with the Constitution of this country. So I think the principles are certainly something that we would all agree with. I think what happens oftentimes with any group is that I think it's how you view the implementation of those principles. I think it's wonderful to have organized groups that are having a stronger voice in what happens to government at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. I think any involvement of citizens and really looking at the issues and making sure that you have the facts on those issues is important to make a sound decision as you participate in government.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
I'm a constitutional conservative, so yes. But here's the bigger issue is that the Constitution has been written. It's not there for interpretation. We've opened that door, and what ends up happening is we get focus groups saying, well, you know, maybe this is what this means. Maybe this is what this means. Maybe this is what this means, so we change. So quite frankly, I have to go back. This isn't to offend anybody. I agree with those principles, but I think our founding fathers had them before the Tea Party had them.
Mr. Kite, I think we'll start with you again for this question. Let's go through the whole panel on this one. I recently refinanced my house, and the bank required the commercial appraisal to include at least 2 foreclosures to reflect market conditions relative to our Hanover County tax appraisal. What is your perspective on revaluation in our tax assessments to also include foreclosures and/or short sales?
The market will always tell you what something's worth. It's worth what someone's willing to pay for it. Now, if you're willing to pay $5, but your government wants you to pay taxes on 10, it's inappropriate. You have to count foreclosures and short sales. Now, there was a time where we would call them, it's not really an arm's length transaction. One out of the blue was foreclosed on, or there was a short sale or something along those lines, and you really couldn't run a whole neighborhood through that. Unfortunately, when you have 5 homes in, say, a 100-home subdivision that have been foreclosed on, it drastically affects the value. And if you can't sell your home for that, then you shouldn't be paying taxes on that. And, you know, I know the state has regulations and rules, and I think that just reemphasizes that it's got to be handled here, okay? It's got to be handled here. If your house isn't worth it, if your land's not worth it because you can't sell it for that, then you have a hard time justifying, in my mind, why you're paying taxes on something that you can't sell.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson.
Well, I think you've had some interesting comments on both the appraisal process and the assessment process, but the thing that's most important to you as the citizens of Hanover County is what's the tax rate on your real estate. So that's based on an amount per 100. I think we're at 81 cents per 100 right now. So for every $100 of your assessed value, that's going to add to your taxes. So keeping our tax rate very low is the thing that the Board of Supervisors does have control over, and that's the thing that I will pledge to continue to do. Now, how frequently that assessment occurs, that's something else that the county can decide. But I think in fairness, we want to look at who has the vested interest. So if you're in the real estate business, you're going to have a more vested interest in making sure that the values are high so that your return on selling houses is going to be higher. Or if you're not in the real estate business and you're just concerned about the citizens, you're going to want to make sure that there are fair tax assessments and a low tax rate. And that's what's on my brochure and what is part of my campaign and what I will stand by.
Thank you very much. The hour is getting a little bit late, so I think we'll get through a couple more questions. Let's keep it to a 30-second round this time for everybody. Let's go with this one for everybody. Would you support Hanover County adopting a policy of elected school board members? 30 seconds each, starting with Ms. Jackson.
I think as we were talking before about school board members, we want to make sure we get the most qualified members on the school board. The process that we have right now does allow for appointed school board members, and I think while we are doing that, we need to make sure that we're getting the best qualified folks. It would be up to the citizens of Hanover County to decide if we want to have elected school board members.
Mr. Davis.
Thank you. Initially, I thought, well, that'd be a great plan. I'm not for elected school board members, and I'll tell you why. What I see happening is you will find, of course, school board members can't run on a party, but what you will see is grandiose promises without any taxing authority. And then what will happen is they say, I was going to give you this, I was going to give your children this, yet the board wouldn't allow me. And we see it all the time, and you will put your children, you will put the parents, the teachers, and the principals in the school pitted against your local government. You'll have politicians banging it out. So I'm not for that. Thank you.
Mr. Kite, we'll start with you on our final question for the evening. I can put it in a general form. What will you do to help strengthen business in our community? If you want to go on by reducing government regulations, but in general, what would you do to strengthen our
Business is important. They're the ones that they carry the freight. That's the facts, and they lower the tax burden on us. So knowing that, working with the HADCC, being a member there and understanding the unique aspects of what's taking place in businesses right now is very important. That message from the business community needs to be taken to the government, and there needs to be a little bit of a change in culture of saying, we're open for business, but I need to hear from the business community. I just can't come up with a government solution. without hearing from the business community. And I know we do that with the HABCC. I know we do that with the historic Paul Green Church. We're always looking because we understand on both sides, there's never a nonprofit without having somebody who made a profit. But we have a lot of aspects, a lot of resources here that we can leverage, and I think it's important that the business community have a voice in their government.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
I think we need to keep a strong commitment to economic development here in the county. We want to make sure we support our small business owners because they are really bearing the burden of a lot of the things that we've been talking about. And to be attractive to new businesses, I think we've got to make sure that we do have incentives to bring them into the county. I think our school system, the amenities that we have do draw the support of local businesses and others who are looking to locate in Central Virginia. Hanover is a unique place, and I think doing a better job on tourism will help us with that. We've seen some recent numbers on tourism. We're not doing as much as we can. We have so many historic resources. We could bring more dollars in and jobs in if we really promote tourism better here in Hanover County.